So they're turning teachers. And he said, within half an hour, he said, Tanti, within half an hour, I learned the name of another student. They took up the camera, they put it around the house. This is my this is my that. They can't get them to sit down. They're being home with some of them, quote unquote, have nannies. So nanny is saying, sit down. But what about those families who cannot afford to leave the kids home with a nanny and they have to be home? They are tired and you cannot get the kids to sit down continuously to do their work. Face-to-face learning, Madam President, is very important. And what happens is that those who can afford the laptops, and they have students, Madam President, who are doing their work on cellular phones. They have no, and those students are the ones who are not so affluent, Madam President, and they have to use phones, and their parents have to leave their cell phones home with them. That cannot be right. It cannot be right. And what we're going to have is a generation of people that they are not well educated because they missed the opportunity to do that face-to-face because of COVID. Madam President, I hear a talk about late deciders. So whenever I am ready to decide, I will decide while people are dying daily. And the individual or individuals who are saying they should leave it to the late deciders, they are fully vaccinated. Something about that picture doesn't look very right, because you are telling me I am leaving you to die, I'm leaving you to spread COVID, I'm leaving you to contract the disease, but I am fully vaccinated. But Madam President, mandatory did not come overnight. It came after a long list of protocols have been exhausted. That I heard this morning somebody saying, listen, as the COVID increases, supermarkets are not practicing the protocols. People are not going to wash their hands. I see people just use their fingers, they're gone in. People are going to government offices. Government, as I say, can barely find the funds to pay. And you have to think about getting hand sanitizer, make sure that you have running water. So you know that in itself is really a problem. And we have to really congratulate Antiguans and Barbudans because they recognize, Madam President, that they have been told at this point, after we've exhausted everything, that this is mandatory. And they have responded. They have responded in a real way. And for the last 2 weeks, it has been up in the thousands. I've been seeing 30-something thousand for almost 2-3 months. Now I'm seeing 40. And when I add it, I'm getting 50 total vaccination with at least one dose. And that is very, very positive, Madam President. The professionals, I heard the CMO this morning, I think she was on a program yesterday, which was made news this morning. She said the efficacy of the one that we started using initially, the AstraZeneca, that it is 85%, Madam President, effective. And she says that I saw a gentleman who said that he is a survivor. And he said if he believed, if he was not vaccinated, that he would have been a goner, because he said, listen, he had everything. He had he was breathing. He wasn't breathing properly. he had pains, he couldn't smell, and he was quite vivid in the way he described his situation. Madam President, I look at it as the government, we are acting like family to the citizens of Antigua and Barbuda. And we have said in no uncertain terms that I am not going to leave you to die. Although you have a choice, make the right choice. Because if your relative is sick at home, you will not go into the bedroom and say, well, you're sick, die. You're not going to do that. You're going to say to them, you're not feeling well. Let me get you to the doctor. Let me get you to the hospital. Let them decide and get the medication so that you can feel better. And that's exactly what this government is doing, because this, Madam President, is hinged on the government, on your economy moving forward, on your job, on Antigua and Barbuda, that we are solely dependent on tourism, Madam President. We have to protect livelihood, and we have to forget the political and the personal agenda. This, Madam President, is most important in your lives. And we have to extend, Madam President, the state of emergency to ensure that our citizens are safe, Madam President, if it pleases you.
Madam President, I rise to second the motion.
Senator Payne-Hyman, you are applauding as well as your colleagues and still speaking, so I didn't hear you. If you could just repeat your...
Madam President, I rise to second the motion.
Thank you very much. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this Parliament, in accordance with Section 20, subsection 5 of the Constitution of Antigua and Barbuda, hereby extends the state of public emergency for a further 90 days or until the 27th day of December 2021. Will there be any debate on the motion? Senator Lewis.
Madam President, I rise to give some brief remarks on the motion before us. We are here again to extend the state of public emergency. And we on this side have repeatedly articulated our position that we do not support the extension of the state of public emergency in Antigua and Barbuda. We reiterate that the mandatory curfew and the mandatory wearing of masks, restricting your freedom of movement, that is, can be enforced under the Public Health Act without a state of public emergency in place. And the references here are sections 8.1, 8.3b of the Constitution of Antigua and Barbuda, protection of freedom of movement. Further, the social distancing and restriction on social gathering, restricting your freedom of assembly, can be enforced again under the Public Health Act without a state of public emergency in place. And the references here are sections 13.1 and 13.2a1 of the Constitution of Antigua and Barbuda, protection of freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, and association. We have had the discussion before that there's more than one path. You on the other side, you have decided to go the extreme route of enforcing a state of public emergency. That's your choice, and you have the right to choose. You have the numbers, and it doesn't matter what we say here. I'm using the opportunity to talk to the people of Antigua and Barbuda. the state of emergency will be extended. Madam President, the people of Antigua and Barbuda are watching, taking note. And at the end of the day, they will judge. And they'll judge you for what you would have done to them. I hope when that time comes, I sat here quietly and listened to the leader of government business, and I'd wish for you to sit quietly and listen to what I have to say. You'll get your opportunity to speak. I hope when that time comes that you'll be ready for what is to come. We on this side have said to the people of Antigua and Barbuda that their fundamental rights and freedoms are curtailed under a state of emergency. And I recall being told, you're fear-mongering, you're creating issues where there are no issues. But everything is coming to light now. We warned that the administration can become autocratic under a state of public emergency. Sadly, we're now living the reality of that, where we watch in horror as the people's rights and freedoms are being taken from them. Follow me, I'm going somewhere. The people of Antigua and Barbuda are tired, and patience is waning fast due to the wicked actions of the governing administration. You said in this motion here that there are tremendous economic dislocations, social disruptions, and psychological trauma. And you are adding to the tremendous economic dislocations, the social disruptions, and the psychological trauma. You're not paying attention to that. Lots of individuals out there going through psychological issues, but nobody's paying attention. Here we are today, where an uncaring government is pushing vaccine mandates on the people. Now you can say whatever you want to say, right? Here we have a government making that determination as to what enters your body. But just as the PM said, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda said, his body is his sovereign domain. Likewise, people of Antigua and Barbuda, I say, your body is your sovereign domain. The God who made you gave you freedom of choice. You and you alone, people of Antigua and Barbuda, should make that final uncoerced decision to be vaccinated. Right now, many persons are acting under duress, not acting under their own free will. Many are in despair, lost, weary, beaten, hopeless. Your vaccine mandate is wrong. It's unwarranted. It's unconscionable. It's ungodly. It's inhumane. Especially under circumstances where, if anything goes medically wrong, God forbid, those who would have administered the medicine and those who manufactured the medicine are indemnified. Indemnified. Just last Tuesday, at our last sitting, a statutory instrument was laid before the Senate. Statutory instrument number 64 of 2021. And it reads, Resolution of the House of Representatives ratifying the AstraZeneca indemnification agreement between the government of Antigua and Barbuda and AstraZeneca AB. God forbid something goes horribly wrong. There is no recourse for the affected, no recourse for his or her family, no liability. Mandates and liability are inseparable. Under no circumstance, especially in this situation like this, where there is no liability, no one, absolutely no one, should be placed under duress to take such medicine. Every mentally competent individual has the right to determine what goes into his or her body. Every mentally competent individual has the right to refuse any medical treatment. What do? You educate, you persuade, and at the end of the day, let the individual decide of his or her free will. Imagine in this country, we've come to a situation, people of Antigua and Barbuda, where jobs and livelihoods are under threat if people decide not to get vaccinated. People of Antigua and Barbuda, a UPP administration would never do that to you. We condemn that. And let me be clear here. The UPP supports vaccination. And we've been doing our bit to push the vaccination with our programs. But we're saying that we are opposed to mandatory vaccination. We abhor further the intolerance. There's a level of intolerance in this nation. I don't know if you are noticing it. There's a level of intolerance and divisiveness creeping into our society on this vaccination issue. In some instances, it's the vaccinated against the unvaccinated. And such is not good for our democracy. Not good for our democracy. Some believe that because they have power, or they think they have power and authority, others have no right to be heard. No dissenting voice. Hush and do what I say. We are all here. And we are all mere mortals. So nobody should be afraid of anyone. You give respect where respect is due, and that is reciprocal. All right? The only person we should fear is God himself. I'm utterly ashamed and dismayed at the arrogant behavior displayed by some of our leaders, beating the people into submission. Anytime a leader has to clobber into submission those he leads, he would have lost his ability to lead. I repeat, anytime a leader has to clobber into submission those he leads, he would have lost his ability to lead. He becomes a bully, a despot, a totalitarian. And at that point, people begin to look for new leadership. I hear the talk about vaccine alone will end this pandemic. The vaccine on its own will not end the pandemic. The vaccine alone on its own will not end the pandemic. And I know I heard you, but those are not my words. Those are the words of the WHO chief, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. He is the one who said the vaccine on its own will not end the pandemic. So yeah, go ahead. Push the vaccine, but don't make it mandatory. There are other things that we can do too. You persuade. Get everybody on board. In other words, it is not just vaccination. You need to consider supplementing with other measures, such as the provision of immune system boosting vitamins and minerals. Yeah. Do you know that vitamins A, C, D3, along with zinc, would help to boost the immune system and fight this COVID, whether you're vaccinated or not? So I'm saying there's some vulnerable individuals out there, vaccinated or not, they're exposed because, look, everybody can transmit and everybody can catch it. So let us put something in place, particularly with the vulnerable, with the elderly, where you provide these nutritional supplements to them to help to boost their immune system. So in the event they're vaccinated, that they come down with COVID-19, they'll have a fighting chance. Now, in addition, I want to also suggest that the basic protocols of mask wearing, social distancing, must be enforced without fear or favor. And the double standard, we've been talking about this double standard from the very onset. The double standard must stop. The double standard must stop. Now, we've been talking, and honestly, as soon as anybody says anything that they don't want to hear, you're anti-vaxxer. Look, in this country here, Antigua and Barbuda, you know how many persons have taken vaccines? Huh? That is not the issue. You all need to know what the issue is, and let's deal with those issues, right? Let's continue the education process. Let's get everybody on board, rather than coming down with a sledgehammer on the people of Antigua and Barbuda. So I'm saying, the protocols must continue, must be enforced without fear or favor. And the double standard must stop. People are seeing all these things. You say this, and then some people, because of whatever, they seem to be exempt. So it's different strokes for different folks. Madam President, in recent days, in response to the mandate, many persons have been rushing the vaccination centers, which is good news for the government of Antigua and Barbuda in its quest to reach herd immunity. But it's the way in which you did it. However, who is monitoring those? You see, look, that's a problem we have, you know. We don't listen, right? We are cutting across each other, so you can't really hear and understand. There's no monitoring. Who is monitoring those individuals to determine or to make sure that they're COVID-free and they do not already have high levels of antibodies from previous infections that they might not be aware of? This here we're talking about almost 2 years into the pandemic. When this thing started, there were just a few people around. Even the Prime Minister himself said that he's of the opinion that you have over 6,000 persons out there with COVID. Right? But he's saying that. I'm just saying, we're just pushing the needle in person's arms, not trying to figure out if they're COVID-free or not, or if they've had COVID in recent past. We're just pushing the needle in the arms. And that cannot be healthy. Now, for the over 6,000 persons that we're talking about, that the Prime Minister alluded to, if that is so, fine. But then, when you look at the numbers, those are what we know about. But all of us know about individuals who are out there sick, who have not been tested as yet, right? How do we curtail the spread if we just accept that there are thousands of persons out there with COVID and don't do anything about it? How do we curtail the spread? But y'all don't want to hear anything from anybody? You have all the answers. There is significant pressure, Madam President, being brought to bear on the people of Antigua and Barbuda. People are fearful, confused, and frustrated. Some have asked, Madam President, when will it all end? My status is my body is my sovereign domain. It's none of your business.
Exactly.
Some feel rejected, isolated, Citizens and residents of Antigua and Barbuda, now is not the time for division and segregation. We're better than that. Antiguans and Barbudans are better than that. Compassion and flexibility should be the order of the day as we all work together in these perilous times. It's going to take a coming together of the nation. We should be our brothers and sisters' keeper at this time. No, it's not the time for the sledgehammer. The rhetoric and arrogance coming from our leaders have been very troubling, to say the least. Some of us have found a little comfort in the words of Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley. And she said, COVID has done enough damage already, but COVID must not be allowed to divide us as a people or as a nation. Listen, y'all weren't listening. COVID has done enough damage already, but COVID must not be allowed to divide us as a people or as a nation. I take some comfort in that. Let's come together as one nation, Antigua and Barbuda, and fight this scourge. The sledgehammer is not the way to go. The fact is, we cannot remain in a state of emergency forever. The state of emergency leaves people feeling helpless, hopeless. This is a democratic country with democratic ideals. When people feel wronged, they will take whatever actions they deem necessary to bring attention to their situation. Sadly, when some attempt to do so, the state of emergency is used as a way to enforce tear gassing. But at the end of the day, people power trumps the power of the governing administration. People power trumps the power of the governing administration. Madam President, it is the people who vote in, and it's the people who vote out. If it pleases you, Madam President.
Senator Shaw.
Madam President, I rise to have a few brief comments and to give my full support to the resolution extending the state of emergency in Antigua and Barbuda. Madam President, through you, Senator Richard Lewis today has continued, as they have done over the past few months, to divide and conquer. Senator Lewis, on many occasions in this honorable House, has strongly recommended that people be vaccinated. Today he seemed to have changed his mind. Madam President, I don't understand. He talks about double standard, Madam President. What could be more double standard than that? I just said. And Senator Lewis has yet to tell the people of Antigua and Barbuda whether he's vaccinated or not. And I think, being a senator, I think that is not a personal issue. He's a public figure, and I think the people of Antigua and Barbuda needs to know. He has yet to say. Maybe that's why when he's in this honorable House, he refuses to take off his mask. All right? Everybody over on this side is vaccinated. Just to remind Senator Lewis that the 1st of October, I don't think he'll be allowed to come back into this honorable House, but that is not for me to do or for me to say. And then they're going to talk about dropping the hammer at that point in time, Senator Lewis. You know, every time you hear on the other side some sort of positive, which is very seldom, you always end up hearing the word but. And I am not a master of the English language. But I just want to remind you all that the word but usually invalidates everything you have said before it. So we always come in here and say, take the vaccine, do this, do that, but. So Senator Lewis, I think you did the right thing this morning. You basically went the opposite direction from where you normally are. Today, you spoke just like an anti-vaxxer. And you can say you weren't and this or that, but that is what you're doing. And that is where you create the doubt in the minds of Antigua and Barbuda. Right? This is the way you create the doubt. And all you're going to speak, so you'll have a chance to rebut. What's that? What's the problem? There's no problem at all. You come in here this morning on a rant talking about people's wicked actions of the government and that they have dropped the hammer. That is why we have 800 something people a day being vaccinated. It's not that. People are seeing the light. You all look at the dashboards? Have you looked at the dashboards? Do you look at the dashboards? Do you see the number of deaths in Antigua and Barbuda? Well, I want to tell you all, right? All or most of that is created by doubt that you all put in the minds of the people in Antigua and Barbuda in your radio stations every day. Right? That's what you all do. You create the element of doubt. That is what you're all up to. Right? Creating the element of doubt in people's mind. And you come here into this honorable house this morning and you want to say that is not what you're doing. That's exactly what you're doing. That is exactly what you're doing. And that is what you all want to come in and I guarantee you, every one of the honorable members on the other side are going to stand up and say the same thing. Create doubt. And when you have left here, the few who are on the fence are going to jump back in your side. Because you all have this notion, I don't know where you all getting it from, that the next general election, whenever it's going to be, you're all going to win because of this. Well, I have news for you all. That can't happen. Not in a million years that can happen. Never happen. People in Antigua are not stupid now. Wait, okay, I don't know where you get that from. I see you putting out every day. I see you putting through you, Madam President. I see all kind of polls on his Facebook page every day saying he'll win. Well, I don't know where you get that from. Right? So, all right? Okay? We will see. Okay? Well, nothing wrong in hoping. Nothing at all wrong in hope. Live in hope, die in despair. All right? Just that you all know, the word mandatory. And again, I am far from the master of the English language. I probably have the lowest grade in English in this honorable house. Right? Right? Mandatory means required by law or mandate. Force means making somebody do something against their will. Nobody in Antigua is being forced to take the vaccine. Nobody in Antigua is being forced. You are not being forced. You have a right to take it or you have a right not to take it. Right? And mandates for vaccinations are all around the world today. Anyone of y'all try, well, go to the States without being vaccinated, no? Go to the States. Go to the States. America, the great America, has just issued that I think is after November 1st. If you're not double vaccinated, you can't come there. Okay? And that is why you see, all y'all are not vaccinated. That is why all you're dead now. Because Senator Frederick said this in his honorable house months ago, you know. When you see America put a clamp, you're going to see man run to get vaccinated. That's what's going to happen. Anywhere in the world you go today, Germany just said no more help for people with during this COVID time if you're not vaccinated. But this small island state, with a prime minister like Gaston Brown, right, has a vision to keep us afloat and stay ahead. And you're all talking about wicked actions and forcing people. Nobody in Antigua and Barbuda is being forced to do anything. This is something that is happening worldwide. This is not Antigua and Barbuda. Right? And you talk about Pierre Mia Motley in Barbados. She panned into the voters. We have no time for that because our economy and economies in the Caribbean cannot afford that. And I guarantee you, what? She's pandering because I'm telling you all, it's a matter of time before she follows the Honorable Gaston Brown, like every other Prime Minister in the Caribbean. You know, every time you all say the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda is doing something wrong, it turns out to be correct. And it turns out to be the right decision, and everybody in the Caribbean follows him. But you see, y'all are not forward-thinking people. That's the problem. Y'all are not forward-thinking people. Y'all believe that by getting up here and putting doubt into people's minds on all the issues, that is how you're going to win. But that's not going to work that way. If people were so against this mandate, you think you would have record numbers of people vaccinating? Huh? Because what? They have a choice. They don't have to go. Nobody's stopping them. Nobody put their gun to their heads and go and get vaccinated. You stand up this morning, St. Louis, through you, Madam President, and you make the people of Antigua and Barbuda believe that the Honorable Gaston Brown have a gun to your head, right? A sledgehammer, right? And force you to go. Nonsense. Because if you're being forced to go, you would have gone and get vaccinated too, right? But you have a choice. You have a choice. But it's going to come the day when you're going to have to get vaccinated. All the theories you have about vitamins and supplements and all this thing that you are preaching, you're going to see. You're going to see. So you, Madam President, St. Louis, one day has to get vaccinated. And it's coming up shortly, 1st of October, the next debate. When they tell you can't come in, what you're going to do. Okay, that I don't sound like the Prime Minister. This is reality. We are in a pandemic. This is not business as usual. Nowhere in the world today is business as usual. Right? Okay? We go object. We're not going to think ourselves to risk our lives and rest because somebody here don't want to be vaccinated or somebody anywhere. Nobody risks their lives. Your solution to this problem is wear a mask and be socially distanced. Right? But then what? Then let just everybody is free, do as they want? Huh? Do as they want? Nothing, Madam President, nothing since the state of emergency, since 2020 April, I think it is. Nothing has changed in Antigua. Nobody has been held for 7 days. Nobody. As a matter of fact, I tell you, there should be more arrests in Antigua and Barbuda for people who are not following the protocols. Nothing is being done. And the senators on this side, ask them how many times we complain about that. More has to be done. I saw a bar yesterday up in Longford's up there, right across the road from the police station. I had 40 cars there on Friday. Things have to be done about it. Senator Tico Lake can vouch this. We always complain about it on this side. There's nothing to hide here. There's nothing to hide. So, but to say that they're not doing anything about anything and they're not this and you're forced and a sledgehammer to your head. Again, for you all, it's the hope that creating the element of doubt is going to make you all win the next general election. And that's not happening. Trust what I tell you, that's not happening. You're not even winning your seat. I don't run for elections. I just come in and talk. Talk fact and talk truth. Right? Good. All right? All right? People don't realize, Madam President, people do not realize that we know, because of COVID, the world and especially the Caribbean, and more importantly, because this is where we live, right? We have a very fragile economy. At the moment, an economy that if we are properly vaccinated and the protocols are followed properly and everything is done properly, will bounce back in a flash. But you see, that is what they don't want. They don't want to see the economy bounce back. Because the day the economy bounce back, which is very shortly, because every airline coming to Antigua is full. Hotels are doing well, right? Businesses are doing well. Okay, but guess what? They don't want to hear that, because for them, that's a death warrant. For them, that's a death warrant for them. Because they have nothing, they try everything in the book, right? To create the element of doubt in people's mind. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Let me tell you all something, see? People, hospital nurses, doctors, matrons, everybody at Mount St. John, they're tired. They've been at this since April 2020. They're tired. You all know about them? They have family. They have lives. And all of them up there are risking their family, their lives, to protect us, right? To protect us. All the big mouth people out there, oh, we're not taking up vaccines. So when they get COVID, we're the first place they run. Mount St. John Hospital. Why are you running going up there? I thought COVID is nothing. I thought you can get over it with your supplements and your vitamin D and E or whatever you're talking about. Right? All of a sudden you're running, you're afraid to death. That's what the problem is. You're overwhelming the system. And all you need to protect us and protect others around you is a simple vaccination that has proven itself worldwide, to be very effective and very efficient. Right? And all of a sudden now, you can't talk St. Louis through you, Madam President, because you're not vaccinated. We have asked you a million times. You are not, and if you're not vaccinated, you can't talk about it. Right? There's no but here. Madam President, I want to read, and Sergeant at Arms, if you could please come and give Madam President a copy of this. This is it's a pet peeve with me for many years, to do with the Antigua and Barbuda Employers Federation and the Chamber of Commerce in Antigua and the private sector organization. I spoke about this on the air a week ago, and I think it was on a show on Friday on Point FM. And the Antigua and Barbuda Employers Federation put out a press release. And you know, I'm very happy that the press release was put out. But again, I am asking the Employers Federation, the Chamber of Commerce, and the private sector organization to stop sitting on the fence. Stop sitting on the fence. Right? It is time that you stand up in Antigua for what you think is right. What you think is right. I am not saying here for one moment, because I'm part of the private sector, that you must create a war between employer and employees. I'm not insinuating that at all, because employers cannot survive without the employees. That's a known fact. And we must be thankful for our employees because they work hard and help us all to make money. They make money, and in turn we make money too. So I'm not trying to tell the government or the Employers Federation, Chamber of Commerce to create a war, but you cannot sit on the fence. You need to get up, you need to go on the radio stations, live, you need to go on the television stations and make your case, state your case, and answer questions that the general public or the employees would like to know. You can't just send out press releases and then have this lame thing. Like, I'm just going to read a little part of it here that I don't understand to know what they were trying to say. All right? The Federation continues to encourage persons to be vaccinated, and if they cannot be vaccinated for medical or religious reasons, they must submit a bi-weekly COVID-19 test. The private sector has been remitting all contributions to statutory bodies within the country, therefore request the government provide COVID-19 tests at cost to reduce the expenses to the private sector. Now, I just want to remind the Employers Federation and their people, right, that statutory payments by law are required. It has nothing to do with COVID. Social Security is for pension, medical benefits for medical, education levies for education. So I have no idea what that line is doing in this press release, right? And why must the government help you bear the burden for COVID tests for a month? How is that going to help anybody? The government has enough burden. The government has been paying without missing the public sector since April of 2020, right? With a severely diminished economy due to COVID. The private sector can bear some of this weight too, carry their employees and help, but they need to get off the fence, right? Of course, the Chamber of Commerce has been non-existent since I was 18 years old. I'm now 58, 40 years now. You don't hear nothing from them. The last time you heard anything from them is in 2000, I think 2003 to 2004, when they suddenly became very political. A lot of people in the chamber were Antigua and Barbuda, Labour Party. At one press conference sometime in 2003, they tried to embarrass Lester Bird, the Honourable Lester Bird, the late Honourable Sir Lester Bird. Embarrass him, right? Okay? Now, where are they now? Right? You need to come, just like how the doctors go on the radio stations and the television stations and talk to the people. Right? Don't sit back and wait for the government to answer, well, you pay statutory payments. We all pay statutory payments. It's a law. We're required to. All right? So, Madam President, in closing, I'm asking the people of Antigua and Barbuda to be smart. Right? Nobody is forcing you. Mandatory is not forcing. We are in a pandemic. The time has come when the world is closing down around us. The world is not Antigua and the Labour Party closing down around the people of Antigua and Barbuda. It's the world closing down around us. And I'm asking you on the other side, y'all stop this double standard. You can't agree with the vaccination, but today you say that the Honourable Gaston Brown, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, is holding a sledgehammer to people's head. Make up your mind. Make up your mind what you want, right? And stand up and tell the people, And if you're an anti-vaxxer, stand up and say, I'm an anti-vaxxer. Don't encourage people to be vaccinated, you're not vaccinated. Right? How can that work? Okay? With those few words, Madam President, if it pleases you. Thank you.
Senator Shaw, if you could turn off your microphone, thank you. Senator James.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, first let me send my condolences to the family members of everyone who have lost a family member due to coronavirus. Let me also send my condolences to family members who have lost family members due to suicides. Recently, we had quite a few, which is a bit shocking to us. This is a very controversial topic, Madam President, so I wish not to debate the topic of the state of emergency. We have a few months ago discussed and understood the importance of it. So my 2 cents today is surrounding mental health, because I think because of this pandemic, a lot of persons have turned a blind eye towards persons that are suffering from depression and all sorts of mental illnesses. And because a lot of persons have lost their jobs as well, they're going through the real struggles of life. And according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if anyone is familiar with that in this house, is that if your psychological needs aren't met, your basic needs, food, shelter, air, water, you cannot function. You cannot even think about anything else besides what am I going to eat today? What am I going to give my children to eat? And we know there are lots of persons out there who are suffering. I get calls all the time that they need food voucher, they need a food package, they can't afford to buy food. And these are the issues that we really, really need to look at. Madam President, in the midst of this ongoing pandemic, which shows no clear signs of abating, so as to allow persons to be able to enjoy the usual things of life, even to let down our hair, the situation is compounded by the fact that government-mandated adjustments are put into effect with little or no time for individuals to process these changes. This has the effect of creating an unstable environment, which makes it nearly impossible for parents with small and multiple children to make routine plans on a daily basis. In this new normal, an errand that would have taken 10 minutes is now taking much longer because of long queues, limited window for us to operate business, and this has led to higher incidence of mental exhaustion, fatigue, burnout, and depression. And I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this. Each of the listed conditions, Madam President, have distinct characteristics which progressively worsens the illness advances. As the illness advances. My question is, Madam President, while we're extending the state of emergency, are we extending the services that we're offering for persons who are suffering from mental illness? What provisions are being made for the stressed and the unwell besides counseling? While there has been regular conversations about mental health issues within the workplace, many employers still do not recognize mental health as a legitimate reason for persons to call in sick. In Antigua and Barbuda, we do not identify stress and anxiety as factors in causing the illness. And therefore, absenteeism may be seen as an intentional neglect of work duties, which is viewed as unacceptable conduct. And let me just pause for cause and really applaud the medical practitioners, because I remember just a few months ago where the Honorable Prime Minister kept pushing the vaccination and we must get vaccinated and blah, blah, blah. You know, I was saying the medical practitioners are the ones that need to come out and really push this message. And what I see is happening now is on ABS especially, the medical practitioners are having ongoing conversations around mental health. And I really want to stop and applaud them for this. The only issue, Madam President, is that most of our society do not watch ABS. I've said this before, and even though ABS has a Facebook page, you're not going to find the younger generation logging into Facebook, clicking on the ABS Facebook page to understand or to follow what is carrying on. So we have to do more with sensitizing the public, not just about the vaccination and the importance of getting vaccinated, but mental health. And this is a very dear topic to my heart because my mother suffered from mental illness until she eventually went missing. Some of the persons, Madam President, are uncomfortable in disclosing the real reason, depression, anxiety, or other mental health conditions because of stigma that is attached to it. The possibility of creating mental health days as a normal part of personnel management should be considered. And here I'm speaking to all employers. What are the factors that would warrant a mental health day? The factors would vary on the individual circumstances, but would be triggered, for example, if an employee feels unfit to perform his or her duties on a particular day because of mental health issues such as anxiety or depression. I think a mental health day would surface or would make sense for them to get. Such a system would, of course, beg the question as to how the employee would provide evidence of his or her condition. Now, sometimes with employers, when you call in sick, some may ask the reason why you're calling sick, or if it's something serious, what is happening to you. Others may just record it as a sick day without asking the real reasons. What I'm asking, Madam President, is while we are pushing mandatory vaccines, while we're extending the state of emergency, I am calling on everyone from a state level, civil society, and a community level to let us do more to provide psychosocial support and assistance to persons who are suffering from mental illness. The young lady who passed the other day because of suicide, God rest her soul, I am not sure how many persons knew that she had issues, maybe besides the family. How many other persons are within our communities, our neighbors, in our own household as well, has withdrawn, and we're not seeing the signs. We're not addressing them. We're not trying to comfort them or lend a shoulder for them to cry on. So, Madam President, I take this from the perspective that we need to do more from a state level. I'm calling on civil society, all the community groups. Let us collaborate and collectively come to some sort of decision where we can work together to provide support to individuals. We cannot burden our medical system anymore, Madam President. We cannot burden family members only because some of them are not patient enough. Some of them are not even trained and to understand the signs that are associated or affiliated with mental illnesses. So, Madam President, with those few words, I am hoping to see a change. I'm hoping to see some sort of coping mechanisms be implemented that can help persons that are suffering, persons that have lost their jobs. Persons don't even have internet. Some parents don't have internet or devices for their children to take part or participate in online school. Sometimes parents themselves, the child is there in online school and you can't even assist the child because you don't understand technology. So I'm not calling on the government though, Madam President, because they're already burdened. I'm calling on civil society. I'm calling on all corporations because they have a corporate social responsibility to this country of Antigua and Barbuda to see what we can do and what we can continue to do to help persons that are suffering from mental illness. With that, Madam President, I am not debating the state of emergency because it is needed given the times that we're in right now, but my major concern is mental health. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Brown.
Yes. Pleasant good morning to all. Madam President, I had no intention to speak today, but based on what I'm listening to and what I'm hearing, it has pulled me out of my hole, so to speak. So I've decided to say a thing or two. I stand in support of the bill that is before us, the resolution of the legislature pursuant to section 25 of the Constitution of Antigua and Barbuda to extend the state of emergency. Now, when I listen to my friend over here on the other side of the aisle, Madam President, when I listen to Senator Richard Lewis, I think he has played the very frivolous part of the discussion so far, or the debate. I think it is frivolous on his part to come here and to tell us that the Public Health Act can stand in place of a state of emergency. I can recall one time I was in conversation. So what you said? You didn't say that? That's exactly what you said.
And he says it every time.
And it's not the first time you're saying it. As a matter of fact, you ran out of, Madam President, the last time they were supposed to be here for the extension, what they did? You boycotted. Women and you boycotted. Now, the best way to institute the kind of measures that are needed to curb the spread of COVID-19, we must have the state of emergency extended. Let me say this, Madam President. I can recall speaking with the Attorney General and asking him, what are the pros and cons? What are the pros and cons of the Public Health Act versus the state of emergency? And I can recall he mentioned to me, based on the Constitution, he explained, the law says that the Public Health Act is designed to protect public health. It is not consistent with the freedom of movement. The curfew does that. He also said the Public Health Act is only applicable under a state of emergency. So, it has to be declared a state of emergency for anything else to follow. I'm not a legal mind, but common sense alone tell you that. The legal minds, Senator Christian, who is not here, these are the legal minds, and I'm sure they can concur with me on what was said by the Honorable Attorney General. And I think you all are playing with this. Barns and stuff is soon full up if they're not full yet. And y'all come here. My mother was afflicted with COVID-19, and y'all come here and pussyfooting and playing hopscotch with this. Madam President, Madam President, I hope you're not crying here now, because I know last time I spoke about your mom and, okay. I'm not going there. But people are losing their lives. People are dying. 63. And more to come. More to come.
But it's true. People are going to die from COVID. We don't want it to happen.
As much as we want to get back to a state of normalcy, we can't be playing frivolously with people's lives. It is wrong. Totally wrong. Madam President, I want Senator Richard Lewis to tell us, since he's so against the state of emergency being extended, tell us 1, 2, maybe 3 reasons why you think this is creating any problem for anybody in the state of Antigua and Barbuda. One, tell me one. And I challenge you to do that. 1.
And who was it affected?
Yeah.
Who was ever locked up?
Antiguans and Barbudans will always remember this pandemic as long as we survive. And we will be able to tell our children that it is the frontline workers who have fought this battle, and this administration, including our health minister, once our collective lives are spared, will be in a position to tell our great-grandchildren and our children to come that we have done well trying to curb this pandemic. The state of emergency is necessary. If you're going to talk about Public Health Act, again the law says that the Public Health Act is only applicable under a state of emergency. So it has to be declared a state of emergency for anything else to come. I don't have to mislead the public. That is your forte, that is your modus operandi. We don't do that over here. We don't mislead anybody. The same way y'all had people on your platform radio station, where y'all got up and had people chatting nonsense about this can cure this and that can cure that. Madam President, these things don't work. The state of emergency must be extended. And I know that when time comes for the vote, you all are going to vote against it. But that's okay. It will be in Hansard. And the state of Antigua and Barbuda will not forgive you, senators over there. Not forgive you all for that. It is a serious matter. And you come here frivolously chatting nonsense to us. Madam President, before I take my seat, like I said, I didn't have any intention to speak, but I'm going to close off now. For those people out there in Radio Land who are not vaccinated yet, and TV, I'm accustomed to radio, I want you all to take it very seriously. People are dying. The only way we can get around this is to be vaccinated, and fully vaccinated. We're hearing now that the funeral homes are loaded. We saw pictures coming out of Guadeloupe and other places right in the Caribbean region. And we just, because it's not happening to us now, where you see pictures with bodies being carted off in containers. Because it's not happening here, we think that it cannot be reality. Let's think again. Let's not be myopic. Let's do the right thing, get vaccinated. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Senator Payne-Hyman.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise to make a few comments based on the resolution we're passing, and also to answer some of the comments that have been made by the other side. But I have to start by saying, when Senator Shell spoke of forced and mandatory, that was a very important point. Vaccines have been around for hundreds of years. Governments have mandated that persons have to take vaccines. And this idea that, oh, you're putting something in my body is nothing new. Things like smallpox, diphtheria, polio, it is vaccines which have eradicated those diseases. And if we were to stop taking the vaccines, the diseases would emerge. Polio is eradicated only in 2 countries, I understand, Pakistan and Afghanistan. They're not taking the vaccines. So this idea that you're forcing me to take something, it's going in my body, When you go to the doctor and he gives you medication, how many of you say to him, what is in that medication?
Even if you told them.
Stop it, don't take my words out of my mouth. And I was going to say, even if he told you, you wouldn't understand. We go to the supermarket, we buy food. It has all sorts of ingredients on it. I happen to look at things. Kentucky doesn't have it on it. But when I see all those chemicals in it, I don't know exactly what they are. I go on trust. I believe the FDA, the CDC would have tested these things and we know they're right. So why can we not have faith in our government and our governments? What is happening now is all over the world. It's a global pandemic. It's not like SARS and the swine flu, which affected certain areas. Somehow this disease has affected everybody all over the world. So when our government is trying to protect us, you don't need the negativity. We need to get everybody to get on the same page and get vaccinated. In Antigua, we are lucky. I understand there's 5 vaccines. People have a choice. There are many countries where people have no choice and they are dying to get a vaccine. They would be happy, but we can pick and choose. Developed countries have been purchasing the vaccines. They've been buying it up. Canada took more than 5 times what it needed. Now, do you think those developing countries would be taking and buying the vaccine if it was a waste of time, if it had no beneficial use? They want to ensure that their people are vaccinated, they have herd immunity, and their economy can get back where it should be. All countries are suffering from an economic point of view. So when they take the vaccine, that's to protect them and their country, the health, the social welfare, everything. It's important that we understand that. And I understand that the opposition will say, oh, you have to educate people, you have to persuade them. How much persuasion education do you need? People look to what they want to believe. There's so much information about the vaccines. Some is true, some is not true, some is fake, some is true. So people pick and choose what they want to believe. You have situations where we have doctors going on the radio morning, noon, and night, and people are not listening to them. They say, oh, it's the government, it's the Ministry of Health telling us. But it's also the doctors telling you. He can only tell you what the doctors say. So if what the doctors are saying is true, does it matter? If you're hearing the truth, does it matter if I tell you or the minister tells you? But the doctors confirm they tell the truth. And I was listening to the radio and I heard the leader of your party speak about Dr. Radcliffe Robbins. And he was on Observer Radio explaining to people why they should take the vaccine. And apparently he was very good. He explained to people why they should take the vaccine. And I heard the leader of the opposition party say, someone came up to him and said, because of what Dr. Radcliffe Robbins said, they took the vaccine. Now that's marvelous. And I said to myself, I hope it's more than one person. I hope it's more than one person who heard him and took the vaccine. But then I thought, hang on a second, he's a vet. Now you listen to a vet telling you what to do and you took the vaccine. So if you can listen to the vet, then you must be listening to the medical doctors. What do we expect? Yes, it's a point. I thought, but if a vet could persuade her, no, you're not listening. Listen, I said I am happy and I hope it's more than one person. But I'm saying if you listen to a vet, why you can't listen to a medical doctor? Why don't you listen to the CMO? The point I want to make, it is personal. It is political. That is why Dr. Radcliffe was highlighted. All the doctors have been speaking. The chief medical officer, the acting chief, Dr. Thwaites, all of them been talking. And on top of that, you have persons who have survived, talking to people, trying to persuade them. When I saw Dr. Daoud, I couldn't believe it was him. He explained so much of what this disease has done. And if you have people who have suffered, have been through it, do you think they're joking? Do you think they're lying? You think people lie about being in the hospital, having to be on a ventilator, having to be incapacitated away from their family? It is real, it is serious, and we need to think seriously. The vaccine can save us. Herd immunity is what we need to get to, and that's why I said, that's why developed countries are buying it so they can get to herd immunity. Then people say, oh, if you take the vaccine, you can still get it, you can still this. But take influenza. Flu is not a big thing here, but it is a big thing in cold countries. And every year, people have to take a flu vaccine. It protects them. It doesn't stop them from getting it, but it lessens the impact. Some people will not get it. Other people get it, but having taken the flu injection, you're protected. And you take it every single year. And once you're past a certain age, your doctor calls you to come and get it. So it's not a case that you take the flu jab and you never, ever, ever have to take it again. You have to take it to protect yourself, to keep your immunity going. And this idea of, as the good Senator Lewis said, taking boosters. I'm not sure what you mean, because I've heard the Americans saying you could take a booster jab to boost it. That's different from taking vitamin C and zinc and all those things. Many of us take those things anyhow. I take all sorts of vitamins, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't take the vaccine. That doesn't mean they will protect me. It is important that people understand. It's important. And you know, this idea that we're in a democracy and the government cannot mandate that you take a medication, you take a vaccine, like I said, from the 18th century, the British have been doing it. That's how you eradicate diseases. And even in the US, from 1905, they've had cases where persons didn't want to take a vaccine. And you know, it says the state embraced, and I'm going to read a bit, Madam President, but basically what it's saying, the state has powers to do that. The state has powers to look at what is best in the overall position for the majority of the people. The state cannot be dictated to by a minority. I mean, it's the case of Jacobson v. Massachusetts. It's a 1905 case. But it basically says you have the power to have a mandate so people can take it. Otherwise, you're exposing everybody to risk, and that cannot be what a government is there to do. You are always going to have people who disagree with everything. Even in war, you had your conscientious objectors, but that doesn't mean you don't go to war. That doesn't mean you don't say, people, you have to do things. You have to look at what is best for the majority of people. You have to look ahead. A government cannot just look at today. They have to look at what is going to happen further down the line. And as parents, don't we sometimes ask or make our children do things that they don't want to do? Because we can see it's in their best interest. They may be hesitant, they may be reluctant, they may resist. But as the adult, as the person with more knowledge, we make them do it because we're acting in their best interest. So I don't see why we're having all these issues. And my good colleague, Senator James, spoke about depression and the psychosocial issues. And I agree with her. But we have to remember, our doctors and nurses are going through the same thing. We are all going through it. And I want to say, when doctors and nurses are working to save someone and they see them dying, that has a very negative impact on them. And if we keep doing that and our doctors and nurses are burnt out, what happens? If they're burnt out, they can't function at the level they wish to function, they're accustomed to function. I can say this, in the UK, many doctors have died helping people. They've actually died. They've given their life for this. And unfortunately, the majority are Black and Asian doctors. So, you know, let's be real. And that's the other issue I have. It is Black and Asian people in these developed countries who are not taking the vaccine, and they're the ones who are dying. And here we have 5. Let us take the vaccine. Let us be sensible. And this idea that if you have medical issues, you have to take it, don't be ridiculous. If your doctor says you cannot take it for medical reasons, then you don't take it. Everybody has a different makeup. But if your doctor genuinely says that if you take it, you're going to die within 2 weeks because you have other contraindications, of course no one's going to make you take it. The Prime Minister's going to say you have to take it. That would be unconscionable. That would be unreasonable. That would be dictatorship, as Senator Lewis has tried to allude to. That is not going to happen. It is just not going to happen. We have to be sensible. We have to be rational. We're in the throes of something the world has never seen before. And I've said this before, nobody has 100% answer, but we do our best. In America, when you have to take the vaccine to travel, how many of you are going to take the vaccine? You're going to listen to Mr. Biden, but you can't listen to Mr. Brown? Give me an aspirin. Come on, that don't make sense. You have to think for yourself and do what is best for you. And this idea that Antigua's doing something very different, no. In the UK, if you work in a care home, You must take the vaccine. You have to take it. And if you don't take it, you can't work. And if you don't work, you won't get paid. There may be other benefits you can get, but so this idea that people are being told they have to take it is nothing new. In the States, didn't President Biden say federal workers have to take it? Because you lead by example. You have to protect your workforce. My dad always used to say something that came to me when one of the senators was speaking. Dead men tell no tales. If we don't take the vaccine, and all this idea, explain, talk, if you're dead, you're dead. It don't make no difference. The object is to stay alive and keep alive, and the vaccines are what helps us. And this idea, again, oh, you're putting something in my body. People drink alcohol. Isn't that putting something in their body? They eat all sorts of foods with all sorts of pesticides, causing all sorts of cancers. Is that putting something in your body? This is something that can save lives. And if an employer is saying to employees, I have a health and safety obligation to my workers, and if you are not vaccinated, please don't come, get vaccinated. He has a duty and obligation. If you go to his workplace and you have COVID and everyone gets infected, the business can close down. The business can lock down. People are going to be sick. We don't have a welfare system here like we do in some countries. So it is imperative that we take care of our health, take the vaccine, and look out for one another. There's just no choice. And I don't understand what the resistance is. The opposition speak about educating, persuasion. You talk and you talk. 18 months, nearly 2 years, we've been talking, persuading. And I want to challenge Senator Lewis, but I'll put my challenge to Senator Nicholas. When your party can convince Mr. Ian Magic Hughes to take the vaccine, then you can talk about educating and persuading people. That has something, because the party supports vaccination. And he does not, and I'm pointing out the fact that you keep talking, educating people, persuading them, educating. If you cannot educate and persuade your own, you have an issue. It is important. That's my point. You keep talking about educating. We have been educating. Our doctors have been educating. Our nurses have been educating. People who have suffered from it have been educating. And if people don't wish to listen, they're not going to listen. But we have to keep doing what we have to do to bring everyone together so they understand that it's important we stick to the protocols. Yes, when I see people not sticking to the protocols, they're too close to me, I look over my shoulder or I step aside. I have been abused by a young lady for that, but I don't care. You have to do it. You have to wash your hands. When I see people, I tell them, we all have a duty to help each other to get through this. And I just want to say in closing, Madam President, that this idea that the government has no legal right to mandate vaccines is absolute nonsense. There's a history of it happening. It's happened from the 1850s in the UK, 1907 in the States. It is what is necessary for us to get through the pandemic, to get back to our normal way of life. If people die, what's going to happen to our economy? If people don't come, we are going to die. We are a third world country. We're not a developed country. You think they're going to say, oh, we're so sorry for Antigua, and we're going to help Antigua out? This is a bit, look how they treat the Haitians. Look how the Haitians are treated. You think they really care about us? We have to care about ourselves and love ourselves to get to where we want to get. We're collateral damage to them. So I want to appeal to everyone to take the vaccine. Make up your own mind. And I want to say to ABS, play that program again with Dr. Dawood, because if you really listen to him and see what he went through, persons are dying. Talk to people whose family have been through it. We see it all the time we go on the internet. People who are anti-vaxxers, they die. It's real. It's not a conspiracy. It is not there just to kill off black people. I don't know what else to say. It is so real, it's not funny. We are living through some very, very difficult times, some unusual times, some dangerous times. I want my family to live. I want all of us in here to live. I want all our families to live. And the only way we can do that is sending out a positive message about the vaccine. Not that the government is being authoritarian and you're dictating and you're using a sledgehammer. No, you're not using a sledgehammer. Those are very negative words to use. And that's why people have that negativity in them towards the vaccine. What you say with words and how you say it can make a big difference. And Madam President, I say this through you, I should know, because I'm not always careful with my words or how I say it, but with the vaccine, we must be careful. We must stop sending out a negative message because it serves nobody. And then when people die, you can't help them. You can't help their family. We have no welfare system. Senator James referred to situations where people lose their jobs, but that's what will happen if people die and we don't take the vaccine. So I would implore everyone to take to the vaccine, stick to the protocols, and sit down and think for yourself. Speak to your medical doctor. Don't speak to the man up the road or some of these so-called influencers, because I don't understand. People are influenced by influencers who have no medical knowledge. The world's gone mad. How could I listen? Do I go to an optician if I have an ear problem or a dental problem? So how on earth are you going to tell me you listen to an influencer? I'm sorry, Madam President, she's distracting me. But you take the point. You cannot listen to people who don't know what they're talking about. Listen to the doctors and be guided. If you're going to listen, listen to people who know. Don't listen to people who just have a bee in their bonnet, or they just think one way, or they're anti this, anti that. If they are so anti, keep it to yourself. Antigua and Barbuda, please take the vaccine so we can get back to normal life. I am not a person who goes out much in the evening, but occasionally I would like to go out. And I'm sure there are younger people than me who would love to go out. And you can only get to that stage. You can only go to that stage when we take the vaccine. And Senator Gavai is saying, hear, hear. Maybe one night we'll go out when the vaccine has we've reached herd immunity and it's finished. Oh no, me and Senator Joseph. Sorry, Senator Gavai. Madam President, with those few words, thank you.
Senator Table.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to offer some brief remarks on the resolution for the extension of the state of emergency for another 90 days.
Senator Table, bring up your microphone. We're getting an echo feedback-ish kind of. Okay.
Yes. Well, it's still forward. Any better? Oh, still buzzing. Well, hopefully the tech. Tell you what, can I go to this table with your leave and try the...
Ms. Moore.
All right then, thank you so much. So, I will not be too long. First, let me extend my condolences to all those who have passed, either directly as a result of succumbing to COVID or from the stresses associated with COVID, whether through suicide or the exacerbation of underlying conditions they may have been suffering. And I wish to commend all of the medical staff and frontline workers for their yeoman service under very adverse circumstances. I wish to encourage one and all to redouble their efforts to maintain the protocols, whether vaccinated or unvaccinated. I am vaccinated. And I simultaneously respect the right of people to maintain their body, their choice, and to maintain their sovereignty over their body. while of course trying to persuade them, and I wish to speak to a little later down some things we can optimize to achieve more compliance without having to resort to the mandatory. Because there are countries in this world who have achieved a very high level of vaccination and indeed herd immunity without having to resort to the mandatory. And that is because the alternative approaches from education to otherwise was implemented in a much more flawless manner than Antigua. And it is my view that notwithstanding some inefficiencies, not too late to still achieve accelerated vaccination by making some innovations and some improvements. I'll get to that. But vaccination or vaccinated or unvaccinated, let us maintain the protocols. As vaccinated, I may have a lower propensity to spread, but the risk of transmission is still there, so I must still hand wash, wear the mask, distance, etc. Even more so for the unvaccinated, because the research is clear. Yes, both can carry it. The risk of catching and transmission is greater, according to all the research from all the independent colleges and research bodies and so on. So let us maintain the protocols. Let us also be a brother's keeper, given the level of stress that is in the community. If anybody is stressed, speak out. Don't end it all. Reach out. The granny used to say, the worst of life beats the best of death. And I believe that is so. So take a risk, confide in somebody you trust, seek the official channels and the hotlines the government is implementing and so on. And to that end, we need to advertise these things more on Facebook. The doctors have done a commendable job. But to concur with Senator James's point, in order to reach the youth that do not tune into ABS or don't follow the ABS page, you need to take those very well articulated clips from the doctors, cut them down into small files and boost them out as ads on Facebook, on YouTube. So you're watching a Nicki Minaj music video, the ad pops up, it's Dr. So-and-so, very short, because people have short attention span nowadays. You get the message. Whether or not they watch ABS, you reach them all over the internet using these ads at nominal cost where government is concerned, both for the mental health and also for the COVID pro-vaccination education, also the compliance with the protocols, which is still necessary. Now, it's very rough out there, right? And I would encourage anybody that needs assistance to call Social Transformation on 562-7515 or 562-7516, because I saw a well-produced video featuring the minister and extolling the new Social Protection Act, etc., all over Facebook and so. But I don't think it's clear to people all what services they can access through the system. The UPP has proposed common sense relief measures, including reducing gasoline and diesel, putting more people on the People's Benefit Food Program, forgiving 50% of electrical arrears, reducing the cost of electricity by 25% for small businesses, extending loan moratoria, subsidizing landlords to a tune of $500 a month in exchange for not evicting people, and also a direct $500 a month stipend to the unemployed hospitality workers and LIAT workers, and many more. But in the absence of implementing the UPP recommended relief measures, at least let us advertise at scale what services people can request and tap into via Social Transformation. So again, 562-7515, 562-7516. Social Security payments are also chronically late, more than normal this month. I was speaking to a very crestfallen and depressed elder just yesterday out in the community. I reiterate my call to put at least 10 million cash in Social Security so they can use it as an overdraft. So notwithstanding late contributions, we can pay our distinguished pensioners on time, avoid them getting stressed out, avoid them having to degrade their diet because they delayed in getting the money they need to eat properly or to access medicines that are not covered under MBS. It's a public health issue when we pay people their pensions late and puts them at greater risk of succumbing to COVID and other ills. So again, give Social Security the capital they need so that they can pay the pensioners on time. Now, on to some of the points made in respect of this mandate. Some would say, well, it is not forcing people because you're not requiring them if they choose to give up their job and all the other consequences of not being vaccinated. You're not physically forcing them to put it in their body. And that is a very sterile and academic and legalistic argument. To the ordinary man out there, what they consider mandatory is that the consequences of exercising my sovereignty over my body means that I experience gross hardship. Giving up my job, can't go to transact business here, can't do this, can't do that. And that is what they refer to as mandatory. And even if there may be a legal basis for that, that does not mean that it is immoral, especially since we have not exhausted all of the avenues to get increased vaccination before coming to this point. And the most classic example would have to be that things went wrong from day one, because that secret Moderna scandal is what gave anti-vaxxers the opening to become celebrities in this country. Prior to this occurring, I'm telling you, and by the way, let me say to all anti-vaxxers, quote unquote, I don't use it as a term of disparagement, I respect your freedom of speech, but I'm saying to all of them that had this undermining of public trust with the secret Moderna not occurred, we would have already been at 60,000 in total vaccinations. But the gap in the building of public confidence derailed everything and created a greater burden on everybody, Ministry of Health on down, to correct that problem. And there are many errors that were made in terms of the curtailment of the situation. For example, why did we abandon? Because Senator Hurst spoke about the decisiveness of the government. Where was the decisiveness when initially we announced that we're going to allow unvaccinated workers in the government to continue to work and you will have bi-weekly testing? But you abandoned it. And I commended the government for reducing the cost, because it was initially $300 for the 2 tests, then you took it down to $100, and I believe ultimately it was going to be free. Why abandon that? That measure was not even given the chance to be tested to see whether or not it worked. So we should not have gotten to this point of mandatory before exercising all options to get the level of rapid voluntary vaccination that other countries have achieved in this world, who we should be modeling. Additionally, we have a spike now. The health workers are under stress. The contact tracing infrastructure was swamped, and there are many people in the villages, we all know them, who can attest that somebody would have told them, I have had an exposure, and many of the people that deal with contact tracing, they will tell their friends and families of the exposure. And these people would not even be called by contact tracing in many cases. Some would be called, others not called. That is because the capacity is not there to process all of the potential exposures and apprise the people in a timely manner so we can mitigate against accelerating spread. The UPP recommended to the government that you have to rapidly hire more people and build excess capacity in the contact tracing infrastructure. We advocated for onboarding medical students as volunteers. We advocated very early for bringing all retired medical professionals, that is doctors and nurses, into the service of contact tracing and other critical areas. And importantly, what we were calling for is to get all these people on board before the system is overwhelmed. So they'd be sort of like a reserve force or a medical national guard, as it were, that they're at the ready. So the minute we have this spike, you already have resources that are trained and ready to get into the fray right away. But right now, we are lagging. It's now that the COVID is already out of control and we're behind in the contact tracing that the government has finally agreed with us that we need to get retired doctors and nurses, seek more nurses, and get the medicals. So I'm saying to you, again, we did not have to get to this point of even contemplating mandatory because there were ways to be more effective in suppressing the spread of the COVID and to get a higher amount of voluntary vaccination. We should not have abandoned the government testing bi-weekly program before evaluating its efficacy. We should have also had in this country universal free testing, which could be done either at all of the clinics or via testing vans or whatever mobile facilities. In such a scenario, if I would be advised by a family member, or friend, or church sister that I was potentially exposed, I would be in a position to help the contact tracing apparatus, because I could go and get my free test and then inbound call them and say that I have COVID and then get the relevant instructions as it pertains to isolation and the like. But you did not embark upon free testing and empower every man and woman in this country to go and do their part to ease the burden on the medical professionals and the contact tracing infrastructure. So again, we should not have gotten to this point. Had any of these common sense solutions been implemented at the point we recommended, we would have already been substantially further ahead in achieving herd immunity. But I still maintain that that secret Moderna scandal is really when this thing went off the rails, because prior to that, people were just in a neutral mind. They were listening to the medical information, and there was not this level of distrust. And since this secret Moderna scandal occurred, we have not caught up. But the people of this country and those who have a conscientious objection to taking the vaccine should not have to pay the price in terms of losing their jobs or otherwise be inconvenienced as a result of the mismanagement of the education and other aspects of COVID management on the part of the governing institution. I also wish to support the recommendation from Senator Lewis that we have to pursue parallel solutions as well. And even the Minister of Health had at some point suggested that large quantities of vitamins would have been sourced and conveyed to the vulnerable in the first instance, and then to everybody else once supplies allowed. So this is not an idea that is controversial or unique to the opposition. And had other parallel solutions been implemented, that too could curtail the spread of COVID and also increase the survivability in terms of the number of deaths and so on. So in other words, this is not a one-trick pony situation. We have to have a multifaceted approach to fight this thing on all fronts. An improved educational approach with more effective marketing to reach the youngsters who may not be on ABS via Facebook and ads further afield, Google, YouTube, etc. We need to boost the contact tracing apparatus. We need to have universal free testing so everybody can go and do their part, test themselves, and then report to the medical professionals what is the situation. And we need to improve on enforcement. Somebody had texted to ask, I put the question, what is the update on that scandalous 200-person pool party at the Royalton? Incidences like this, where there's a public perception of a double standard, have also undermined confidence and compliance. But even beyond notable cases like that, when you go to and fro in this country to supermarkets, especially the sort of ones where the aisles are closed and so, you know what I speak of and where they are, not the Epicureans, but the little, smaller supermarkets. It's packed like sardines in there. We need to have wardens or whatever the relevant title is to go and do spot inspections and ensure that there is distancing and so. Even with the surge in vaccinations, which I welcome as a vaccinated person, I was so happy to see the big crowds, and so I saw Senator Gavaya interviewing with IBIS, and the two of them were beaming down at AUA, but I rejoice with you, because I love the surge. But we need to have enforcement of the distances, even among those surges of vaccination at the center. So let us not drop the ball when it comes to the matter of enforcement. Okay, so again, you have your lawyers, we have our lawyers. The Attorney General, I am told, has offered an opinion. We have our opinions from eminent legal minds who have asserted that based on several clauses in the Constitution, when there's a medical emergency, certain rights can be curtailed. Therefore, there was not a need to resort to this. But The government has the numbers and they have the wherewithal to make a determination as to what route they want to take. You have chose SOE. We are saying there could have been an alternative approach to get the same compliance with the protocols, etc., without having the extra powers accorded. Now, let me say that I concur with the sentiments expressed by my colleague, Senator Lewis, that we have to minimize this level of division. Let us dial down the rhetoric and let us put the brakes on this divisive policy. And there's some critical questions that have to be answered. There's an exemption for Rastafarians based on religion. What is to prevent any other person that deems themselves in this society to be highly religious to go and file a class action lawsuit and say, well, I have a strong religious conviction also? This thing is not being thought through thoroughly enough. Is a Rasta more religious than, let's say, many of my Adventist friends on Facebook they are, quite frankly, more strident in the opposition than some of my Rasta friends. I mean, they're ready to go to war over this thing. So again, let us think clearly about when we take positions that one class of people are eligible for religious exemption, but it does not apply to all of the other people of faith in the country. But we are where we are, and let me just end by again reiterating, we support vaccination. That is the official position of the UPP. I support it. The UPP's official position also is that. But we also uphold freedom of choice, and we are categorically against mandatory vaccination. I just hope that having given some insight as to the failings that could be corrected to keep us on the path to herd immunity without this highly punitive measure, that the government will reconsider. And I will close by cautioning that resistance to this policy is at a fever pitch. I'm sure we're all aware that there's a picket action that is being put on by the freedom fighters of Antigua and Barbuda at Government House on the 30th. And based on the level of publicity behind it, there's a likelihood that the numbers may exceed the 10-person limit or whatever. I am saying here today, in the full hearing of the nation, that I am admonishing the powers that be not to deploy the tear gas, not to deploy the water cannons. As long as people, regardless of the number, are socially distanced, peaceful, socially distanced, mass, and peacefully assembling, let us not stoke the ire of the people any further. Okay, there's the law, but there's also common sense. No tear gas, no water cannon. Allow the people to peacefully demonstrate. And again, I strongly recommend that we reconsider the mandatory vaccination policy and instead close all of these gaps that I have cited so that we can follow the path of other countries to achieve herd immunity and keep down the COVID numbers and get away from the CDC level 4 and protect the tourism, etc., without the punitive and draconian policy of the mandatory vaccination. And also, of course, given this is the resolution before us, given all the reasons we cited 3 or 4 times before, we do not believe, based on our eminent legal counsel, that there's a necessity to extend the state of emergency to enforce the protocols. If it pleases you, Madam President.
Senator Tabor, before you take your seat, I'm nursing a headache here, and I couldn't hear within all the shouting. Are you saying, and I hope that is not what you're suggesting, as a member of this House, that the numbers would exceed the 10, yet still you're encouraging it? Hold on. Senator Tabor, as I said, I couldn't hear with the noise, but I hope that is not what was said.
It is not.
It is not.
It is not. What I stated, just for the record, because maybe the noise impeded Hansard, based on the level of publicity, because they actually paid to advertise it, okay? Unlike
No. I just want to ensure.
I am not encouraging it. I'm saying it's likely to happen, but exercise restraint. No tear gas, no water cannon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Senators, thank you. Those who are on the government bench who haven't spoken, you have your opportunity coming up. We can listen to you for 20 minutes like the others. Senator Nicholas.
Madam President, because you're nursing a headache, I decide to go next because I will not be shouting at all. So, since when people's health status is an issue? Anyway, Madam President.
You know, you're like the popular child in school. You get up to stand and everybody can't even allow you to speak.
Yes, I actually just completed one so that I could speak. I'm a little nasal today.
So should your time start now as opposed to when I first recorded it?
And Madam President, may I beg and seek your guidance and protection during my presentation?
Wow. You're anticipating quite a bit from your colleagues. Senator Nicholas, your time begins now.
Thank you, Madam President. And that is exactly why I'm here. The division is not necessary. There are days when we come in here and we support bills put forward by the government. And we do not have this robust debate. But it's not every day we're going to come in and agree with everything that is debated. And we have to understand that. Well, Madam President, as I sat and I listened to the debate on the motion, I went back to some notes that I had from July 2020, when we were debating an extension to the state of emergency back in July 2020. And we stated then, and we stated after that, our objection to the extension of the state of emergency. And my notes back then, I said, the public, and Hansard will bear me out, the Public Health Act and the Quarantine Act, together with the various regulations and guidelines, are sufficient for us to deal with the COVID-19 situation. And I asked then, and I'm asking now, that we have quite a few regulations. Every time we come in here, the government, leader of government business presents quite a number of them before this House. And we ask that they be given teeth. I said that then, and I'm saying so now. Senator Shaul made the point in his presentation that a lot of people are ignoring the regulations. What we need is enforcement. And we're saying that all these can be done without the state of emergency. We have a Public Health Act, a Quarantine Act, a battery of regulations and guidelines for us to follow. Let us enforce them. Let us give them teeth. I asked the question then, and I'm repeating now. How has a state of emergency prevented COVID-19? How? And I made the point, and I'm just recapping because we made the presentations here, and Hansard will bear us out. I made the point then, Madam President, and I repeat, there is no public health justification for a continued state of emergency. Everything that we're seeking to do, the mask wearing, the social distancing, the curfew, all the regulations, everything that we put in every month and come before this House, they are covered there. So it's for them to be enforced. There is absolutely no need for a state of emergency. Having said that, Madam President, having reflected, I now move forward. And with your permission, Madam President, I want to get a little personal and give a personal story. I don't know since when it becomes public business who is vaccinated or who is not vaccinated, but are you allowing me to speak? Anyway, through you, Madam President. But it is public knowledge, Madam President, that Sean Nicholas is fully vaccinated. Madam President, yes, you almost held my hand and I'm getting there. Madam President, I am the mother of one child. God has blessed me with a son. He's a teenager now. And I remember when I was pregnant, I developed gestational diabetes. Yes, it was really bad. And for several months, I had to do the blood fasting, blood glucose tests, right? And for 3 hours, 3 consecutive hours, every month, I had to take that dig. Madam President, I have a condition, and I actually went to look it up because I said it wasn't normal. Whenever I saw needles, I would have fainting spells. I would faint, and I had to go look it up when we were doing the COVID. And it's actually called, and medical people out there, forgive me, I didn't study medicine. It is actually called trypanophobia. It's a fear of needles. Madam President, I faint when I see needles. So when you ask me behaving like that for COVID, for the COVID vaccine, I had to brace for that. Allow me, I did those glucose tests, among other tests that a pregnant woman had to do, not for me, because I felt then that I had an unborn child who could not make that decision for himself. And I did it. Come forward many years later, and that came back to me. I said, I have a son who could not make that decision for himself. And I decided that I was going to get vaccinated for him. I was going to get vaccinated for the people in my various circles. I was going to get vaccinated for my country. I took that decision. But Madam President, having taken that decision, I am not going to be blind and say that it was all well. Most of us in here, we took the first jab together. And I remember in the leadership, the women's chat, the Saturday after the first dose, we were all WhatsApping to see what the side effects would have been. Colleagues, I went home that Saturday and I waited for side effects. I waited for side effects. No side effects came, so I got up and I went to the supermarket. So I said, good. The second jab that I got, Madam President, I have never said it publicly, but it needs to be said. I wish someone had said it to me before. No, we have to be real because I'm getting somewhere with this. I'm not sure if we know when the atlas is on its axis, how it tilts to a side. Madam President, that was my head for about 3 days. I could not leave home. I had to be walking with my hand at the side of my head to hold it up for fear that my shoulder could not take my head. And then the chest pains came. And I started rationalizing and I said, no, my heart is on the left, so it can't be a heart attack. I was afraid to go to sleep for fear that I wouldn't wake up. And I'm being real. I didn't know what was happening to me, Madam President. And we're all adults here, and I know this is going out. I am being real. There is also a side effect of bleeding, which I had, excessive bleeding. And I'm going to get a little bit more drastic. It wasn't just bleeding, it was bleeding and clotting. And we have to be real. It happened to me. Madam President, I had to go to the doctor, by the way, and it was then I realized these were all side effects. I got a call from the Ministry of Health's hotline, and I'm sorry I didn't take the young lady's name because she was so polite and so engaging. I am so sorry I never took her name. And when she called to ask about the first jab. And I told her, it is so funny that you're calling me now. I am experiencing all these symptoms for the second. But she could not take it then. She promised to call back. So young lady, whoever you are, and you promised to call me back, please call me back because I had nothing to report on the first, but I wish for it to be recorded that the symptoms are real. Having done that, Madam President, would I take the vaccine again? Yes, I would.
Would I encourage people to take the vaccine again? Yes, I would. But what we need, Madam President and my colleagues senators, I've heard it in here, the time for division isn't now. The time for division isn't now. This thing is not black and white. There's a lot of gray in between. So when there are people who are saying they are not vaccinated as yet, what are we doing to reach them? And that is the point. We cannot go prejudicing our argument, calling people anti-vaxxers. They are not anti-vaxxers. Have we ever considered and listened and heard that a number of the doctors and nurses at Mount St. John and Celeste Bird Medical Center are not vaccinated? Have we asked ourselves why? So it is not a situation of black and white. We all need to get to that place of herd immunity, which, by the way, the scientists are now telling us that seems to be elusive. We need to get to a point where we have enough people vaccinated. But let us try to move the needle along. We cannot go about dividing and us versus them and who political and who not political. We're all in this together. So for those of you who are spewing this, I don't want to say nonsense because it's unparliamentary, but spewing the narrative that the UPP is encouraging people not to get vaccinated, stop it, because it is not true. We want to make sure that the people of Antigua and Barbuda become vaccinated. We want to make sure, so need to stop it. And how do we go about it? We continue to persuade, we continue to encourage. It does not help. It does not help when people take it upon themselves and go out to become vaccinated. They're singled out, they're embarrassed, they're body shamed, and saying, look, rather than saying, oh, you don't even have to mention it because you are encouraging people. So sometimes our very actions cause people to turn against the effort. We are all in this together. We are very mindful of the dashboard. We are very mindful of the number of deaths, and of course our hearts go out to all of them. But how do we cannot go together. We cannot get there if we go divided. All of us are in this together. So, Madam President, I just want to say that we do not support or do not think the state of emergency is necessary for this public health issue, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. We say that the Quarantine Act, the Public Health Act, together with all the regulations and guidelines that we bring here, meeting after meeting after meeting, are sufficient. We call on the relevant bodies. Chairman of the Central Board of Health, you need to make sure that the various agencies do what they're supposed to do. Don't just sign orders. Make sure that they are enforced. And that is how we will have a handle on this pandemic. Not red versus blue versus orange versus green versus pink. Antigua and Barbuda needs all of us to be on the same page where this is. I have used my various platforms to tell people, go out and get vaccinated. Madam President, we talk about the number of people who are going out to be vaccinated. And let us not fool ourselves. This has become bread and butter. And people are doing it. People are doing it to save bread and butter. There are people who have called me to ask me whether or not they should. And I said, yes, go, because I know where I stand. But people are not doing it willingly. And if we have people doing it willingly, can you imagine the number of people who will go out like me and encourage others? So, Madam President, I'm just saying, let us all work together. Forget this political who against and who, because you might be surprised, some of the Labour Party supporters who are not vaccinated, and nobody making a noise about it. So who did a poll to say UPP people? Who you people not? Come on, stop out. In this disaster, in this pandemic, there is no red, there is no blue, so you need to stop the rhetoric of talking about it being political. It is not political. So, Madam President, if I can just use this platform for the last time to encourage Antigua and Barbudas, those residing, those who are citizens who are here, go out and be vaccinated. Do not do it because you were forced to. Go out and be vaccinated, because Antigua and Barbuda needs us to take that selfless act so that we can go forward. And my friends and my colleagues on the other side, let us do this together. Let us stop the politicking. Let us just get to that point. Yes, Senator Payne Hyman, you have been the most vocal this morning. Let us get through this together. And the aim is to be vaccinated by persuasion. And if we continue the persuasion, we continue the education, we will all get there together. If it pleases you, Madam President.
Senators, it's at 12:30. I'm advised that lunch is here, and since it's prepackaged, we have to be mindful of the heat. And we have 6 other members to speak. I would entertain the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I move by way of motion that we adjourn for lunch until 1:30.
Madam President, I rise to second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that this Honorable House stands adjourned until 12:30 this afternoon. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned until 1:30.